Tim, when you are also an educated not just real estate, right? But you like to play the market. You like to keep up with the macro trends.
I,
I know that. Yeah, you do. And I would love to get from your perspective, where are you seeing opportunities right now for investment for either long-term, short-term growth? Kind of like what things are piquing your interest right now?
yeah. I try not to play the short term guessing game because I certainly cannot predict the market in the short term. But longer term, I'm really optimistic. I think that we have a pretty incredible setup right now with people have a lot of money in their pocket. The pandemic caused people to save and pay off debt. Plus they got some paychecks from the government, and all that is great for the economy. And then on top of that, we're seeing more companies hiring than there are matches from employees looking for that type of job. And so we're seeing wage growth, which again is going to be good for the economy. It kind of goes to Greg's point that if we can grow wages, then affordability is less of an issue. I think right now the wage growth is particularly in the entry level area, which is probably where it needed to be. And so I'm optimistic. I know that's not consensus. There's certainly people who are kind of concerned that we're reaching a peak. I don't see it that way. I'm much more bullish.
What do you guys see as far as housing prices? What are you guys predicting over the next few years?
Yeah, I'm predicting more stability. Like we can't keep rising at the pace that we have. And I think nationally is going to have to do the same thing. We're going to run out of buyers. You can't keep going at 8, 9, 10% for very long. So my hope is that we see some stability. Hopefully the interest rates remain stable. Federal Reserve's been very adamant about letting inflation do its thing for a little bit here coming out of the pandemic, saying it's going to be transitory. Assuming that they allow that to happen and mortgage rates remain low, I think that home prices can stabilize as opposed to decline, with probably continued modest price increases over the next few years.
Do you guys track months of inventory up there? Just curious.
We do.
Yeah. Can you give people an idea of maybe how many homes are on the market and how many homes sold recently, or just curious?
Sure. So in like our markets, I'd say maybe months of supply, months of inventory would typically be 3. And right now we're measuring it in terms of weeks instead of months because there's no resale inventory. In some of our markets, it's like there's a week of inventory, and in some it's 4. The senior guys on
Tell people what that means to see 4 weeks of inventory in a real estate market, right? What does that tell people about that?
Sure. So to kind of explain it to someone who's never heard this term, months of supply is if today no new homes were listed on the market, given regular demand, how long would it take to sell all the homes that are currently on the market? And so normally about 3 months. Today, 4 weeks. So we're talking like 1 month. And what that means is that buyers have very few homes to choose from. Sellers have all the power basically. And it's created this situation where listing prices are going up and buyers are still paying over list. And there's bidding wars.
Yeah. And when you see such low months of inventory or months of supply, that would indicate higher than normal home price appreciation. Then the next question is, how long is that going to last? And then you start to think about affordability, right? So I guess in maybe in your maybe an average market for you, what would be the median home sales price for you guys?
So I'd say a year or so ago, let's call it 18 months ago, our median price might be around 350,000. And now we're up approaching 400,000.
400,000, right? To put it in perspective, last time I checked, the median home sales price across the country was about 360. I'm sure that's gone up a little bit. You know, when you're going nationally, it's not going to go up as much as when you're in a specific market, but prices are rising. I mean, one thing that is a little bit different than our thoughts is that, you know, in Jacksonville, we expect higher than normal home price appreciation over the next few years. And we don't see it slowing down really this year for sure. Next year, we still feel like you're going to see higher than normal home price appreciation. But this is a really cool topic because, you know, there is no national real estate market, right? There are regional real estate markets, and Tim's an expert in his market. But one thing you should be looking at, if you're starting to think about where prices are going to go, is find out the months of inventory in your local market. In Tim's market, it's about, you know, 1 month to maybe 3 months, depending on it, right? So that's really low. But then also look at the median home sales price that he's working in, right? It's 400,000 now, right? That's starting to get less and less affordable for people. In Jacksonville, we're under 1 month of inventory right now. We're under 4 weeks of inventory, which is really low. Have never seen it this low. And our median home sales price is a lot lower, right? 285 is where we're at right now. So if both of those things are really low or as low as possible, you know, the common thought there would be you'd see higher than normal gains on appreciation for a longer period of time. And the opposite would be true the higher you go for months of inventory and the higher you go for purchase prices.
So given all this, a couple of subjects I would like to explore here is seeing all this appreciation. Tim, you've been holding on for a long time. I know that you mentioned you've thought about cash out refinancing. Where are you in that? Are you contemplating doing something like that? What would you do with that money? Kind of like what's holding you back from testing those waters? I'd love to pick your brain on where you're at with that.
Yeah, I plan to I'm doing a refinance on my primary, and once I get through that, I plan to do a cash out refinance on at least 2, potentially all 3 of my JWB homes. Yeah, and I plan to reinvest that in additional JWB homes. So yeah, I think the Jacksonville market is, as Greg said, I think it's poised for additional appreciation. Obviously, the cash flow won't be the same as it was
right
when I bought 10 years ago, but that's okay. It doesn't mean it's not a good investment today. Greg, maybe you can speak to this a little bit. One of the things that we look at is migration from high level. My understanding is that Florida is experiencing incredible population growth compared to the rest of the country, and so that's one of the reasons that I think that Jacksonville, low price plus you've got population growth, it seems poised.
Yeah, absolutely. And this isn't a new phenomenon too. A lot of people will say, oh, well, this is just because of the pandemic, right? This is just because people are trying to get out of New York and, you know, have more space and where the state has opened up. I mean, that's really not the case here in Jacksonville, right? We were the 6th fastest growing MSA in 2018 out of the entire country. We were number 6. So it has been an established trend to move to Florida for sure, but specifically to Jacksonville because we are undervalued in comparison to the major markets in the state of Florida. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and everybody loves the no state income taxes. And we have a beach here, which Pablo and I go surfing in a lot of the time, right? And, you know, obviously the weather and all that good stuff. So people have been coming here, but you underscore a really important point, checking population growth, because at the core of this, that's demand. That's demand for renters. That's demand for owners of property. And like any business, you need to have, you want to make sure you got a steady stream of demand coming to whatever you're selling. So if you're an asset, you own assets and rental properties, you want to make sure that you're along that path of that demand. There has been a steady in-migration path coming into Jacksonville, Florida for a long time. And now it is just unbelievable. It really is. I mean, they haven't released the latest numbers reflecting the population growth since the pandemic. They just go off of, it's interesting. You know how they track until like the census comes out? You know how they track like in migration?
How's that?
They go to sites like U-Haul and they track to see how many in-market moves come from like, you know, U-Haul, which I love U-Haul. They're great. But I would have thought that like the government would have had like better, more recent data. But if you go and you look at all of the trends, like and then they also track now the number of people like on LinkedIn who changed their hometown to Jacksonville.
Interesting.
That's what they do now. That's the most most current, I guess, immigration data. And Jacksonville is at the top or near the top of all of them. And it's because people want to move to Florida. People also want to move to Texas. But if they go to Florida, they're looking for undervalued parts of Florida being in a major metro, and it's Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Lower prices than Miami, lower prices than Tampa, lower prices than Orlando. So it is things are booming right now.